Hey guys, my name is Aaron Alexander and I'm going to be giving you guys a short devotional for the week. So, when we think of pride or being prideful, what often comes to mind? We think of countless verses or messages that our pastor has shared about not being prideful. They say, hey, you shouldn't be prideful. I thought myself what prideful means, and I came up with the definition that prideful means that you are full of oneself or you have high opinions of oneself or themselves. Then I thought I'd ask a friend that we love these days, ChatGPT, to define what prideful meant. ChatGPT came up with the definition that said that being prideful means having excessive or unreasonable amount of pride or self-esteem. Excessive pride can lead to arrogance, vanity, and a lack of humility. So what I want to point out about that specific definition from ChatGPT is the phrase lack of humility. It's often seen as the opposite of prideful, which humble versus prideful, they're often seen as the opposite. All over the Bible, there are many verses that talk about an ideal Christian is one that is humble. An ideal Christian or a wise person is one that is humble and not prideful. We see it in Proverbs, many chapters throughout the Bible, but specifically Apostle Paul talks about being humble and not prideful throughout his speech throughout the whole Bible. Combined, I searched up prideful and humility is mentioned almost 100 times. So we know it's definitely an important topic that we can't miss and we have to get right. So it's taking a deep dive into one of the places where pride is mentioned in the Bible, Romans chapter 12. To give a little bit of context, Apostle Paul is talking about how we as a Christian or we as an individual should be a living sacrifice, how we can mark ourselves as a true Christian, how we should love one another, and that we shouldn't be a part of this world. We shouldn't think of ourselves as greater than one another. We should live in harmony, bless those who persecute you. And lastly, he talks about how we should not be prideful. The verse that we're going to specifically focus on is Romans 12, verses 16. So the verse reads as, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Before we go into that verse, two things that I want to notate is haughty is a synonym for prideful, and lowly is, it says, but associate with the lowly. In other translations, it says ordinary people, so we're going to assume that means not to associate. So the verse would read, do not be haughty or do not be prideful, but associate with the ordinary people. So when we read that verse, we understand that as believers, we can understand that we have to be different from the world, that we shouldn't be prideful. We should be a humble character, and we shall be disciples of Christ. The world will persecute you for being different, for not following according to the course of this world, right? We have to be different, and we have to be a living sacrifice to God. It will test our faith, and it will test many times, and it will be hard. It will be, you'll face temptations, and you'll face difficult situations where you would want to be prideful and not humble. But innocent moments such as, for example, somebody giving you praise for doing well on your instrument while worshiping God, or after speaking at church, somebody gives you praise. Although they might seem like innocent moments as you're doing the ministry of Christ, they all fall under the category of being prideful. All glory should be given to God at all times. We shall not take an ounce of it. That doesn't mean that in the good times that we can't rejoice, but always remember to stay humble. And even in that verse, Paul talks about all these different ways of being a true Christian, or how to be a living sacrifice to God. And it says never to be wise in your own sight. That means that no matter how smart you are, no matter how great you may think you are, always humble yourself before Christ. It's ironic and almost comical that Paul is the one that's saying this, because we often read before a lot of his sermons or a lot of his writing, he says that He's the least of the apostles to be deserved to be called an apostle because he's persecuted the church. We see it everywhere. I've persecuted the church. That's his way of showing humility and not being prideful. Although he's seen as an apostle by the people as a great saint, he wants to let the people know, hey, I've persecuted the church, for I'm not any better than any one of you. He humbles himself before Christ and the people because he knows that the God that he serves and the God that we serve deserves every ounce of praise and every ounce of our humility. To wrap up, something that I've always wondered and something I want you guys to think about, you guys can comment after and tell me what you guys think about, is what I've thought about was why the wise men were called the wise men. We often overlook the story of the birth of Christ as, hey, these three guys came and they bowed before Christ. I've always thought and I've always wondered, and even now I'm wondering why the wise men were called the wise men. I thought about it before doing this devotional, and I came up with the fact that simply they were called the wise men because they were seeking after Christ. Figuratively and literally, they were seeking after Christ. So that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? That's an example of what we have to be like. We have to seek after Christ, be different amongst the world, as we read in that chapter. And we have to be identified and seen as a disciple of Christ that lives as a sacrifice to God daily. We have to, no matter if it's hard or not, remain and stay humble and not prideful. Thank you, guys.